Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're opening up the ultimate balance sheet of your life. We spend so much time tracking our bank accounts, our investments, stressing over whether our physical assets are going up or down, but today we're pulling from our source material to open up a totally different kind of ledger. We're going to uncover what it truly means to be wealthy. We're talking about that invisible fortune that actually dictates the quality of your everyday life.
It's a pretty provocative question, right? Are you wealthy or are you just rich? As we dive into our sources today, they raise this fascinating point that honestly made me stop and think. What if we've been measuring the success of our lives using the entirely wrong currency? We are constantly bombarded with the idea that fulfillment is something you can just buy or earn through some fancy title. But this concept, it challenges that idea head on. Just think about this stark contrast for a second. On one hand, you have financial prosperity. It's external, it's countable, it has strict economic value. But then you have emotional wealth, which is completely internal. It's immeasurable. It's that peaceful mind. The source material highlights a really profound truth here. A person can possess massive financial prosperity and still feel totally impoverished inside. And on the flip side, someone with very little material comfort can carry this absolute, incredible richness of spirit. Because, let's be real, you literally cannot buy a peaceful mind.
So how do we actually define this inner fortune? Well, emotional wealth is essentially the quiet abundance found deep in your inner world. It's your capacity to love sincerely, to endure pain without getting bitter, and to find real, genuine meaning in just ordinary, everyday moments. It's like this hidden asset that gives you the strength to remain whole when your external circumstances become completely uncertain. Like, say, keeping your sense of humor when literally everything at work is falling apart. That right there, that's emotional wealth.
Section 1. The invisible fortune, your emotional assets.
Now, these assets, they aren't locked away in some bank vault, and you definitely can't track them on a spreadsheet. They are built entirely through connection. We're talking about assets that actually multiply when you share them. Things like safe, meaningful conversations where even the silence feels comfortable, or a friendship that's strong enough to survive distance, or even a bitter disagreement. It's choosing tenderness over judgment. Even a simple memory, the comfort of a familiar voice, or the laughter of childhood, acts as a massive deposit into this account. These are the things that sustain families and communities through the absolute hardest of seasons.
Vulnerability is not weakness, but courage in its purest form. That brilliantly captures how true emotional connection is actually forged. An emotionally wealthy person deeply gets this. By bravely sharing our authentic, messy selves with others, we aren't showing weakness at all. We are actually demonstrating courage in its absolute purest, most powerful form.
Now here is where it gets incredibly profound. It's fascinating how even the really painful experiences like deep suffering and heartbreak eventually pay dividends in this emotional account. Our sources note that grief actually deepens emotional wealth. Why? Because it teaches us the immense value of love and just how incredibly fragile time really is. People who suffer and heal, they don't just recover and go back to normal. They develop a deep sensitivity. They become profoundly gentler and infinitely wiser in the process.
Section 2. Making daily deposits. Building your inner reserves. Okay, so emotional wealth doesn't just happen magically by accident, right? It grows through intentional habits. These small, consistent acts are basically your high-yield investments. Take practice and gratitude, for instance. That yields better emotional returns than any stock market index out there. Simple acts of kindness, they create an instant sense of purpose. Spending quality time with loved ones, engaging in meaningful conversations to build trust, or just sticking to healthy routines like getting enough sleep and exercise. These daily deposits drastically build up your emotional security and adaptability over time.
If we break down the process of internal growth, it really comes down to a few key steps. Step 1 is self-reflection, really taking the time to understand your own emotions. Step 2 is creative expression, like writing, art, or music to constructively process those feelings. Step 3, seeking out nature and a bit of quiet solitude, which works wonders for restoring clarity. But Step 4 is arguably the biggest one, forgiveness. Because releasing resentment, that frees up huge, massive amounts of emotional energy and completely restores your inner peace.
But wait, we need to do a really honest audit of our own accounts right now. Because just as this invisible wealth can grow, we have to acknowledge a pretty stark reality. Fortunes can be lost. This account can face rapid bankruptcy if we aren't paying attention.
Which brings us to Section 3, the costly withdrawals, habits that bankrupt peace of mind.
Let's put these side by side for a second. On one side, you have your wealth builders,
things like meaningful conversations, gratitude, real connection. These are depositing contentment every single day. But on the exact opposite side, you have your wealth depleters. Isolation, constant negativity, the endless trap of comparing your life to others. You have to ask yourself, are your daily choices building you up, or are they systematically draining your hope and resilience?
We all face these invisible taxes that just exhaust our spirit. Take holding on to a grudge, for example. That consumes massive amounts of your precious emotional strength. Or think about habits like excessive dependence on social validation, doom scrolling for approval, or overworking yourself straight into burnout. These act as massive, heavy withdrawals from your account. Add in toxic relationships, suppressing your true emotions, unhealthy coping habits like escapism, and that underlying fear of vulnerability, and you're basically preventing meaningful relationships and real emotional growth from ever taking root.
0. Literally 0. That number represents exactly how much lasting fulfillment can be purchased by mere productivity and economic achievement alone. The capacity to experience genuine gratitude, to hold on to authentic relationships, and to maintain deep self-respect, those are treasures that are entirely beyond economic value. There's no price tag on that.
Section 4. Your ultimate inheritance, the legacy of the heart.
When you zoom out and look at a whole lifetime, emotional wealth is the true inheritance you leave behind. It doesn't go into a bank trust, it goes directly into the hearts of others. Long after fancy titles fade away and physical possessions disappear, what actually remains is the kindness you offered. It's the encouragement you spoke to someone when they needed it most. It's the love you sustained. To cultivate this kind of wealth is basically investing in the human spirit itself. It's a fortune that defies all traditional economic logic, because it grows not by hoarding it away, but by freely giving it away to others.
So, I want to leave you with a really vital question to reflect on as you evaluate your own personal balance sheet today. We know that small, consistent acts of care toward yourself and others are the absolute foundation of a deeply fulfilling life. But when all the external markers of success are stripped away, what kind of fortune will you truly leave to the world?
What is the true balance of your hidden bank account? Seriously, think about it for a second. Because we all carry this internal ledger. It's kind of like an invisible balance sheet that ultimately dictates our daily peace of mind, our resilience when stress hits, and for sure, the quality of our relationships. If we focus only on the material numbers, we actually risk completely bankrupting this hidden account.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the hidden bank account.
Now, emotional wealth isn't loud, it's not flashy at all, it's really the quiet abundance we carry within ourselves. We're talking about things like trust, peace, a deep sense of belonging, and this is huge, the ability to give and receive love without fear. And, just like a 401k, this kind of wealth doesn't just magically appear. It compounds, slowly, over time. It builds up through our daily habits and the choices we make when absolutely no one is watching.
Moving on to Section 2. What exactly is emotional currency?
So, what's the actual tender we use to build up this wealth? Well, emotional currency is exactly what we exchange in human connection. It's our attention, empathy, honesty, encouragement, patience, and just true, genuine presence. Every single interaction you have, whether it's just a passing joke with your local barista or a deeply vulnerable conversation with your spouse, it all involves an exchange of this very specific currency.
And because we're basically trading all day long, every single interaction does one of two things, no exceptions. It either deposits into or withdraws from the emotional accounts we hold with ourselves and with other people. There is literally no neutral ground here. We are either actively building our reserves up or we're draining them down.
Which brings us to Section 3, making daily deposits.
There's such a stark contrast between our everyday actions when you think about it this way. Imagine listening to someone without secretly preparing your rebuttal in your head. Hard to do, right? But that is a massive deposit. Keeping your word in the small, seemingly insignificant things? Another big deposit. But then contrast that with gossiping, manipulating, or just speaking carelessly. Those are immediate withdrawals. Overpromising and underdelivering, that drains your trust account instantly.
But here's the thing, making deposits isn't just about how we treat other people. Actually, it requires fiercely protecting our own inner peace first. We build currency by respecting boundaries, especially our own. We build it by practicing self-compassion instead of, falling into self-contempt. And crucially, by choosing to rest before exhaustion turns into bitterness. You simply cannot fund someone else's account if yours is completely empty. It just doesn't work.
Now, when our own accounts are full, That's when we can foster real, genuine connection. We make relational deposits by offering gratitude freely and specifically. We choose to repair after a conflict instead of just aggressively defending our egos. We celebrate others without letting comparisons steal our joy. And perhaps most importantly, we intentionally spend time with people who leave us feeling lighter rather than smaller.
Let's look at the flip side in Section 4, the cost of withdrawals. Withdrawals often happen really quietly. They act as these tiny internal leaks that drain us from the inside out. When we ignore our own emotional needs until resentment takes root and starts growing, we are basically hemorrhaging currency. When we're constantly comparing ourselves to others, or when we walk into a room desperately seeking validation rather than genuine connection, we're writing checks our emotional bank account simply cannot cash.
And these leaks definitely extend to our relationships, taking a really heavy relational toll. We drain currency when we stay in performative relationships, or when we avoid the difficult conversations that truth requires. Plus, in our incredibly distracted world today, treating someone's attention as disposable rapidly depletes your shared account. Finally, just neglecting gratitude, assuming that someone's loyalty is permanent, is a surefire way to completely bankrupt a bond.
All right, Section 5, Compounding Wealth and Bankruptcy. Let's talk about time.
Look at how this plays out over a timeline. On day 1, a tiny withdrawal or deposit feels completely minor, right? Almost unnoticeable. But fast forward to day 30, and those repeated small actions have compounded. If we've been making withdrawals without replenishing, that account is running dangerously low. By day 90, the result is obvious to everyone around us. It's either a state of emotional bankruptcy or a state of quiet abundance. Because bankruptcy rarely happens overnight. It's the delayed result of repeated, unreplenished withdrawals.
This is so important. Emotional wealth is not built through grand gestures. It's just not. It is built through consistent deposits of care, integrity, and presence. An expensive, lavish vacation won't fix a bankrupt relationship if those daily, small deposits of listening just aren't there. Consistency will absolutely always outpace the grand one-off gestures.
Bringing us to our final section, Section 6, the emotionally rich person. Ultimately, the richest people emotionally are often those who make others feel safe, seen, and valued, while still protecting their own inner reserves. It's a dual necessity. You have enough abundance to make the people around you feel truly safe, but you're also wise enough to fiercely protect your own boundaries so your personal reserves never run dry.
Which leaves us with one final pretty important thought to wrap up this explainer. Who are you going to deposit emotional currency with today? Think about it. Will it be a spouse, a coworker, or perhaps a much-needed deposit into your own account? The ledger is yours to manage, and the currency is right there in your hands. Get out there and start compounding that wealth.